All right, so I'm sitting here with Joplin's music in front of me, a whole bunch of other music as well, and I'm just thinking about sort of brainstorming on an upcoming video on ranking other Joplin works other than the famous works that I did before. I've already did the worst piece by Joplin in my last video, so I had some audience participation on that. You listed your least favorite work of Joplin, if there is one that we could just eliminate. Mine was Stop Time Rag. This is more of an underrated masterpieces video. So what we're going to do here is what you need to do first is if you're not familiar with Joplin's works, I guess become familiar with them. Once you're familiar with them and you've heard them or maybe even played them if you play piano, I want you to go through the table of contents. Like I have my Joplin book here. I have all the works here except three. I have the older edition of this, the Maple Leaf book, and it doesn't have three rags. It's missing Rose Leaf Rag, Fig Leaf Rag, and Searchlight Rag. Okay, so I'm including those two. So I'm looking through the whole table of contents, including collaborative works with others. And here's what we're gonna do in this video. We're gonna choose only three works that you think are the most underrated masterpieces by Joplin. Just three. Now, we have to define what underrated masterpiece means to do this. First of all, okay, in my case, I think personally, okay, here's what I think. I know that probably the majority of you, or many of you, will pick Fig Leaf Rag as the best underrated masterpiece. Fig Leaf Rag, great rag. I would rate Fig Leaf Rag as one of Joplin's absolute best rags. But here's the kicker. Fig Leaf Rag is not underrated. Fig Leaf Rag is not underrated. Fig Leaf Rag is it's lesser known, but it's not underrated. Joplin connoisseurs and people who really know Joplin's music rate that piece very highly. So Fig Leaf Rag, for those who know it, is rated very highly. That's why I don't consider Fig Leaf Rag an underrated masterpiece. It's a masterpiece, but it's not an underrated masterpiece. It's rated very well, and for good reason, because it's one of Joplin's best rags. So for the sake of this video, I'm excluding Fig Leaf Rag. So let's just say, okay, you can't use any of the famous 10 included in the last video. Maple Leaf Rag, Entertainer, Magnetic Rag, Solace, all of those really famous ones that are rated very highly for good reason. So we've done those already. You can't include those. You can't include Fig Leaf Rag because Fig Leaf Rag I don't think it's underrated. It's just lesser known, that's all. And then I guess that leaves pretty much everything else. So except for the 10 famous ones and Fig Leaf Rag, I want you to choose three of if you had to choose just three works out of those remaining works that you could bring to a desert island that you think are the absolute best three rags that Joplin wrote, other than the famous ones and Fig Leaf Rag. What would they be? What would they be? That's a tough decision. It's really hard. That's a hard decision. But, I've lived with this music for a long time. I've played most of Joplin's works. I've recorded most of them on YouTube, as many of you know. It doesn't mean that my opinion is better than anybody else's opinion. It just means that I've become very close to these pieces over the years. And for that reason, I've developed my own personal opinions on Joplin's rags. First of all, they're all great. Okay, I can't name a bad. There's nothing bad that Joplin wrote necessarily, but if I had to choose just 3 of the absolute underrated masterpieces, ones that are just sort of forgotten about and not really played very much and not really talked about very much, those are the ones that we're concerning ourselves with. So here are my picks. I don't know the order yet. Well, I sort of do, but here's my 3 picks, actually in chronological order. My first pick for underrated masterpiece is, you'll be surprised. Many of you will be surprised, actually. The Strenuous Life. The Strenuous Life from 1902. I think The Strenuous Life is one of Joplin's absolute best rags. It's been forgotten about. No one talks about it. No one plays it. It's not a sexy title. The picture, the title, the picture on the front is just this boring looking. It looks like it's made by a 5-year-old. It's not exciting. It's not. It's nothing exciting. The Strenuous Life. It's a strange title. The title actually comes from, it's named after a speech given by Theodore Roosevelt around this time, around the turn of the century or so. And so it's sort of just a reference to the speech that the president gave to the American public about working hard, always, working hard, putting in the strenuous life, so that's where the title comes from. It's not an exciting title. It's a title that came from a speech given by a president, and not really an entirely exciting or sexy title. It's a boring picture on the front cover, but the music is absolute, it's just glorious music. I love The Strenuous Life. I think it's one of Joplin's best works, and it's definitely his best work in his earlier period. I think it's better than The Entertainer. I think it's better than Maple Leaf Rag. I think it's better than maybe even better than The Easy Winners. So anyway, The Strenuous Life. Now this B section, one of the things I love about this piece is the next strain, the B section comes along, and it's just this, it's a total contrast from what we just heard. So we have a nice majestic opener with a nice strong opening. He marks it forte, then we come into the B section and you have personally, I like a softer dynamic, a little less pedal, make it sound a little more playful sounding. So you have these big contrasts between the A and the B section. I love that. That's the mark of a good composition. When it allows you for lots of contrast in mood, in dynamics, in character, and it just keeps going and going. The trio section here, the third section. Joplin marks piano. Most trio sections are a little softer, mezzo piano or piano, so. I like a nice legato tone there. So to play the trio section here well, it requires a lot of attentive detail to fingering to make sure everything is connected. I do like a very connected sound here, so I don't like a staccato and rambunctious sort of sound. So it gets to the low point here. Then it opens up in the D section. Then it opens up. So after it has a sort of romantic kind of theme at the end coming. I like to play that forte. I like to come all out. And if I do a repeat, I like to repeat the bass an octave lower to make it even more powerful sounding. So when I play the Strenuous Life, I try to get all the contrast I can out of the piano. So I want to make a piano sound like an orchestra. And I've always loved Strenuous Life because it allows me to do these things and because the themes are so contrasting in each of the sections, and they're just great themes. They're great melodies. So Strenuous Life, my first pick for underrated masterpiece by Joplin. No one ever talks about the Strenuous Life. My second pick is, I'll do this in, let me see. Well, I'll do this in chronological order. Okay, since it's chronological order, I'll pick my next one here. I had to print it out because the original isn't in this book. It's one of those three that I mentioned: Rose Leaf Rag, Fig Leaf Rag, and Searchlight Rag. Well, normally I'd probably pick Fig Leaf Rag, but since I said before, I don't think Fig Leaf is really underrated. So here's one that is underrated, and it's never talked about and almost never played, and it is an absolute gem hidden in Joplin's works. Absolute gem. I love this piece. And in fact, I love this piece probably as much or maybe even more than Fig Leaf Rag. Rose Leaf Rag. Rose Leaf Rag. Whoever talks about Rose Leaf Rag? Rose Leaf Rag is forgotten about. I think Rose Leaf Rag is one of Joplin's absolute best compositions, bar none. Rose Leaf Rag, like, and for the same reasons as I love the Strenuous Life, for those same reasons, but in a different sort of way, I like Rose Leaf Rag. So it just has a sort of and you don't know what to think when the introduction is played. I mean, he could do anything. He could do anything after that. So if you came up with that introduction, what would you put next? Let me play that again. Well, I'll show you what Joplin does. He has this ingenious weaving theme with this chromatic line going down. It goes like this. That's just like half the first phrase. Let me play that again. Ah, a nice diminished seventh chord. I love that. So he's using contrary motion here between the hands. And then he goes down the chromatic scale, and he has this chord. That chord, he has a big accent on that chord. So when you play it, you want to play, you want to da-da. You want to give that sort of a little more emphasis than normal. Then, what does he do next? Takes the same theme, but he goes down and does it in A minor. We could do that again, a little slower. Then he goes into the dominant of G. This is in C, by the way. So let me just start again from after the intro. Now what does he do? A nice accent on that chord. Kind of weaves around. It's easy to hit wrong notes in this one. this modulation. And then he reaches his destination of C. Let me play that, the last 4 bars here. And then he goes on. And he has this nice chromatic line going down, and it's only mezzo forte now. He marks legato e cantabile, so he wants it a little more in a singing style, a little softer, and then that's repeated. Then he has the C section, the trio section. A nice, just delightful, absolute delightful, just, it sounds like a little dance. And you know, they're marches, they're based on marches, but it just has such a unique character. Now, something totally new here in the D section. So listen to the contrast now between the C section and the D section. So we have, going along the C section, now going on, he uses sort of a rhythmic pattern, and he repeats that rhythmic pattern. So he repeats da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da. Basically, for the whole last section, that's all he has. It's very monorhythmic. That's what we would call it in music theory, monorhythmic. He's just using one sort of monotonous rhythm in a good way in the last section. And it's just absolute delightful music. Roseleaf Rag. Roseleaf Rag. How many people have you heard say they love Roseleaf Rag? Like none, except me. And maybe you too in the comments below. Anyway, that would be my number 2 pick in chronological order. I think that was from that was from 1906 or 1907. Anyway, the third one, a third most underrated masterpiece in Joplin's works. Absolutely. In fact, I might even rate this the highest one. I don't know, it's hard to tell. But this one has always been that piece that is not talked about very much, is not played a whole lot, and it's underappreciated, and that is the Nonpareil. The Nonpareil, and it's the one with the picture in the front with Uncle Sam with the flag. Nonpareil, none to equal. Well, this piece is almost none to equal. This piece is absolutely glorious. I think it is up at the top there with up in there in the top with Solace, Magnetic Rag, Pineapple Rag. We could include Nonpareil up there too, but since this is in another list, it may be at the very top of my list for underrated masterpieces. The Nonpareil from 1907. Sorry about that. I don't know what it is about this piece. I just love it. I've always thought it was one of, if not the best, Joplin work. I know that Solace is probably always going to be the best, but Magnetic Rag is up there too, I think, for most people. But don't forget about this. Don't forget about the Nonpareil. I think this is neglected. It's a neglected piece, not played very often, and its true value is underappreciated. I love the Nonpareil. One of my favorite works. So the Strenuous Life, Rose Leaf Rag, and the Nonpareil. Those are three of my picks for underrated masterpieces from Joplin. So I want you to list yours down below. If you want to include Fig Leaf, that's okay. You can do that. But I just wanted to sort of eliminate it from my choices because it's an obvious choice. So I wanted to just eliminate that and just concentrate on ones that are a little less obvious than Fig Leaf Rag, since that's so popular now. Anyway, leave your picks below, and until we meet again in the next video.